PR Connections Radio presents.
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here in the sports and entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada, on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Rickelli. Welcome to a great edition of Vegas Hockey Hub. Follow us on social media at Vegas Hockey Hub and follow the network at PR Connections Radio. If you're a part of our YouTube channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and turn on notification bell. Not miss any episode of Vegas Hockey Hub. And this is a great edition of Vegas Hockey Hub, as we are going to be interviewing Vegas Karen, a diehard Vegas Golden Knights fan, someone who has been a fan since day one here with the Vegas Golden Knights. And Vegas Karen, welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub. How is it going today?
Thank you. I'm great. It is raining in Las Vegas, which is very unusual. So,
well, really, what's going on is that it's raining because your Vegas Golden Knights won a Stanley Cup championship, and we're still celebrating and having a good time. Am I right? We're still raining down the parade.
Okay. If you say so.
So, getting into our Vegas Golden Knights, let's set a little bit of the background with you. So, obviously, your host, Ian Rickelli. I've been watching hockey since I was 2 years old. I love the game of hockey, regardless if it was the Colorado Avalanche back in the day, thanks to Peter Forsberg, Milan Hajduk, Joe Sakic, Patrick Waugh, all the great legends that were back in the day, or the Anaheim Mighty Ducks when you had Teemu Selanne, Corey Perry, Ryan Getzlaf, Scott Niedermayer, so many great legends there. And to now, where you have your Vegas Golden Knights and the Misfits, who have been part since 6 years. But I want to ask you, Vegas Karen, what is your relationship with the world of hockey? What has hockey been like for you, Vegas
Karen? I've enjoyed learning hockey from day one. I really wasn't a whole big fan as far as until we put the deposit down for the preseason. We went for the season tickets for the first year, like everybody else. We went into Hawk big time on credit cards that year so that we could go to most of, to some of the games. We gave a lot of the tickets away to family and friends because we couldn't go to all of the games, but then we went to the playoffs, and then we went to the real playoffs, and then we went all the way to the Stanley Cup, which was a once-in-a-lifetime event for us, even though it took us a few years to pay off our credit cards, but the first year was worth it. So I've learned a lot of hockey. I enjoyed the Misfits. I was terribly disappointed when they were torn apart and replaced by certain other people. But I've learned over the years that somebody once told me that you don't get to love the players on the team because they don't last very long. So. And I think that was you that told me that.
I think on a previous episode of Vegas Hockey Hub, all this long time ago, I did mention that, look, don't get attached to players because at the end of the day, sports is a business. At the end of each outcome, sports is about dollar signs. It's about making money. And players are going to come and go. Players are going to get signed. They're going to be released. They're going to be bought out, traded. They're going to retire. It's the way sports is. So I always say, don't get attached to players because they're not going to be here long term. They're not going to be here forever. And before the Vegas Golden Knights, I know Las Vegas, they had hockey here. You know, the Las Vegas Wranglers, ECHL, which was the minor league team back in the day.
Right.
They also had preseason hockey. The Colorado Avalanche, LA Kings used to have preseason games here back in the day. But I want to know from you, Vegas Karen, because I used to go to those games all the time as a kid. But what about you? Since you are Vegas Karen, since you love the city of Las Vegas, did you have any prior experience in hockey with Las Vegas before the Golden Knights showed up?
Oh, yeah. When we lived in Ogden many years ago, we used to go to the Utah Grizzlies periodically and go see them. And then when we moved here, we went and saw the Wranglers because they were able to play the Grizzlies. And so we went there when the Grizzlies would play them, and wound up loving the Wranglers. So we would go periodically to that too. One of our favorite things to do during the year was go to the I think it was called the Fury, the
Frozen
night of
Fury, yeah.
Frozen Fury, yeah. And we went once, probably the last game before all the NHL happened, where the Kings would come into town. They would play the Avalanche. The Avalanche would come into town, and the fans, they would usually get in their face, but this time they really got into each other's faces, and they wound up fighting in the halls and all kinds of things. It turned out to be quite a mess, and
Oh, I bet.
it was not fun to sit there and watch it.
LA Kings fans are very passionate. That's one thing I learned about all of you LA Kings fans. You're very passionate about your Kings. And since we were talking about minor league hockey to kind of begin this part of the show and kind of establishing your connection to hockey before we break down what's happening next,
Right.
did you have any familiarity with like professional hockey? Because yes, I understand that there are the NHL teams. I mentioned Colorado and LA on my end because I got to watch them growing up. But have you ever been to like another state, for example, before you got to Las Vegas that kind of had hockey in there? Like, is there any like states that you were either visiting or you lived before you got to Las Vegas that kind of had ties to the game of hockey?
Yeah, we went to a couple of hockey games in Houston where we lived, and that was quite an experience. We actually took our grandson to a mall in Colorado when we lived there, and he was very young, and we stood in line for hours so that he could see the Stanley Cup. And the Stanley Cup was like half of what he was. And the person that was next to it, that was guarding it, saw that he was struggling quite a bit, to even be around it. That he literally picked him up and sat him in the Stanley Cup with his legs over the top of it.
Oh, wow.
And that was one of the most interesting things that we did. But we've enjoyed learning about hockey, doing things about hockey. But yeah, I guess I'd have to say I'm more into hockey than I realized over the years.
That's because hockey is the greatest sport of all time. And anybody who's watched Vegas Hockey Hub with your host Ian Rakelli would know how much I love this sport. I love the game of hockey. It is incredible. Now, getting to your modern day Vegas Golden Knights, your Stanley Cup champion Vegas Golden Knights.
Mm-hmm.
Who is, in your opinion, the biggest threat to your Vegas Golden Knights heading into this year? Because if you're going to repeat, if you're going to go back to back as a Stanley Cup champion, who is a team that you look at in the NHL and say, you know what, they could be a potential threat to your Vegas Golden Knights? Who's a team that you say could be a challenge for your Vegas Golden Knights repeating as Stanley Cup champions?
I think there's two teams, actually. There's the Avalanche that have been there for 2 years, or two times. But I think Seattle is probably their biggest threat at this point. they've only been here for 2 years, and over the 2 years, they have gone from a mediocre team to a really good team. And I think showing where they went in the playoffs last year really showed everybody and opened their eyes about how good they are. And I see them getting even better this year. So, and I think we're going to be able to see that when we go there for the Winston Cup in January, or the Winter Cup.
Yes, absolutely. I know exactly what you are talking about. And, when it comes to the Seattle Kraken, I mean, they kind of did the opposite of what your Vegas Golden Knights did. Because the Vegas Golden Knights went straight out of the gate. They had a lot of veterans on that roster, some established guys on our roster. And that's kind of what helped them early on in year one. Whereas Seattle kind of took an opposite approach. They drafted a lot of guys who were on the younger side. And then they used the NHL draft and got Matty Beniers and then Shane Wright when he eventually develops out there in Seattle. So they did completely a 180 of what Vegas did in Seattle. Right. And the Winter Classic, which is at T-Mobile Park in Seattle, which, by the way, one of the best ballparks in MLB. If you've ever been out to Seattle, you know what I'm talking about. It's a beautiful ballpark. So having the Seattle Kraken and Vegas Golden Knights, the two newest expansion teams, being part of the Winter Classic next year is going to be phenomenal. But let's get back to Colorado versus Vegas. Because, yes, you are right. You have the previous two Stanley Cup champions from the Western Conference. Colorado won it in 2022. Vegas obviously won it in 2023. And if there was a 7-game series, which we did not get to see last year, Colorado lost to Seattle, so we did not get to see that matchup. How grueling of a series would it be? Because Colorado is great defensively, and they have some very solid skaters on offense. Right. But with Vegas, it really feels like it would be kind of a counterpunch. We're going to go at each other, Colorado and Vegas. So from your perspective as a hockey fan, how good would that series be if from 6 months from now, we have Colorado taking on Vegas in the Western Conference Finals, for example?
I don't think it's going to be an easy time. I think it's going to go down to 7. And I don't think that the numbers are going to be that high. So it's just going to be a matter of maybe one goal in a win, So if Vegas is 3-2, they're going to turn it around the next game and have us looking bad instead of them. So I think it's just going to be a repeat of having low scores, having game 7. And to be honest, that's what the NHL wants. They want to do the 7 games. They don't want to have somebody blown out in 4 or 3. So I just don't see it. I don't see them doing anything but that. So,
and let me toss 2 more teams from the Western Conference at you and everyone watching all around the world here on Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. We're here at Vegas Karen, a diehard Vegas Golden Knights fan, because there are 2 teams in the Western Conference you didn't mention who some people are going to bring up, and it's for obvious reasons. The first one is actually kind of a bitter rival with Vegas. It was actually supposed to be our main rival heading into our franchise history, and that was the LA Kings. Now, the LA Kings, they got Pierre-Luc Dubois from the Winnipeg Jets. They got him in the trade in this offseason, and you have a bunch of young talent that are young and ready, and they are now in the NHL. And plus, they have some solid veterans in Philip Deneau, and you have some pretty good up-and-coming guys on the back end. So the LA Kings are kind of a first team you can mention, but also the Edmonton Oilers. And when you mention the Edmonton Oilers, of course, you have to talk about the best hockey player in the world right now in Connor McDavid. I mean, this guy is phenomenal. Almost nobody is on the same wavelength in terms of what he's doing on the ice. And, of course, you have his ice partner in Leon Draisaitl, who's one of the best players in the world as well. So what about them? Because you mentioned Seattle, you mentioned Colorado, but what about Edmonton and LA? two teams out there in the same division as Vegas and two teams who do have some experience in the postseason?
Well, both of the teams, they only have maybe 2 or 3 players on that whole team that are having to hold the rest of the team up. If it wasn't for them not being there, I don't think it would be a very good team.
So as we are talking about the Vegas Golden Knights here on Vegas Hockey Hub, I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. And let's kind of focus on the Vegas Golden Knights very quickly because goaltending is vital. And we saw in the Stanley Cup playoffs how important Stanley Cup goaltending is. And since you're a Vegas Golden Knights fan, you will know that the Vegas Golden Knights have had kind of a rotator's belt of goaltenders throughout their franchise history. Now, you had Marc-Andre Fleury, who is a Hall of Famer. He is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer when he eventually gets inducted. Of course, it will be with the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's the sweater he will be inducted into, but he's a Hall of Famer nonetheless. So you had Marc-Andre Fleury for the first couple of years. Then you had Robin Lehner for a while. For a couple of years, Robin Lehner was the guy. Last year, Logan Thompson is an all-star for the Vegas Golden Knights. He gets hurt, and the guy they traded for this past offseason, Adin Hill from San Jose, they have him come into the starting role. He performs phenomenally, and he helps the Vegas Golden Knights win a championship, and Vegas rewarded him with a 2-year contract. So, as a Vegas Golden Knights fan perspective, what do you look at the goaltending, and what do you see? Because you have an all-star in Logan Thompson, and you have a Stanley Cup winning goalie in Adin Hill.
I think as far as the goalies are concerned, I was quite frustrated and upset how Marc-Andre Fleury was basically kicked to the curb after he won his championship cup. He got the Venza, and they just kicked him to the curb. And I didn't really appreciate that very much, the way that the Knights treated him. But he did lose a game by a mistake that he made and lost us going into the championship, another championship. So I understand what they did, but I mean, they could have done it in a different way, in my opinion. But Logan Thompson came in. He showed what he had. He got hurt. I have noticed that when the goalies get hurt, they don't come back as well as they were before. It's like they've got a little bit of a fear factor at that point. Adin Hill came in, and I don't think we'd have the Stanley Cup from last year if it hadn't been for him picking up where Logan Thompson left off. And I think we're going to be a very good team this year because you're going to have Adin Hill as the number 1 goalie, and then you're going to have Thompson as his backup. And as far as Lehner, I think they should just buy him out and get rid of him because, you can actually see his meltdowns on the ice. And that's not good for hockey at all. So
now, I will say Robin Lehner being on long-term IR, I actually beg to differ. I believe you keep him for the last 2 years of that contract. Besides the fact that he's not going to be playing for the Vegas Golden Knights, he essentially will be a contract on the roster, but you're not really going to be seeing him in Vegas after that. Adin Hill definitely won Vegas the Stanley Cup, and he did a lot of good for the Vegas Golden Knights, and he definitely deserved that extension that he did get.
Right.
And with Logan Thompson, I've always said this, and I even said this on Vegas Hockey Hub before, if he hadn't gotten hurt, we'd have to wait and see what he was going to do in his first postseason appearance. Because he was an all-star for a reason. Like, you don't just get voted into the all-star game. You have to do pretty good.
Right.
So for Vegas, I'm not worried about the offense. I'm really not worried about the goaltending. But there are question marks about the defense with your Vegas Golden Knights. Because there are a section of Golden Knights fans who question the legitimacy of how good the defense is going to be going into a repeat as Stanley Cup champions. But then there's also Golden Knights fans who understand that you have one of the best shot blockers in Alec Martinez, one of the best two-way defensemen, Alex Pietrangelo, and one of the best guys in the NHL in Shea Theodore, who's a top 20 defenseman. So what is your perspective on the Vegas Golden Knights defense? What is your idea on how the Vegas Golden Knights defense is going to be as they head into their potential repeat here in Las Vegas?
Well, I think they're going to find it a little bit on the difficult side without Riley Smith. That was one of the people that actually got us to the Stanley Cup with all of his scoring. And then again, they kicked him to the curb. So, and I was a little disappointed all again, because it seems like they're mainstreaming all of the misfits who were here on the first to somewhere else, or they're buying them out, or they're trading them, or they're doing whatever with them to kind of get rid of them. And I know that Marchessault's contract's up next year, and I would like to see him stay with us, and I would like them to do whatever they can to keep him. Even I understand that he's an older player, but he doesn't play like he's an older player. He plays like he's really in the game, and he's got a lot of experience that he can help the younger guys with to perform. So sometimes having older players on your team gives you more experience over the years and what has happened to you and what you can pass on to the new younger version of your teammates. So
it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happened with those guys. But, when it comes to Vegas Golden Knights, there's always the whole salary cap situation. And Jonathan Marchessault, Chandler Stevenson, William Carrier, just a few examples of guys who could be free agents this upcoming year.
Right.
So take about a minute and really explain to everyone who's watching around the world, what should Vegas do for next year? Because, yes, you have about $87 million is the salary cap for next year. And Vegas, if it's done correctly, would have about $70 million. If everything's done correctly and they make enough moves to actually make it work, they could have about $16 million in cap space for your Vegas Golden Knights. But you also have to keep in mind, with that $16 million, there's going to be guys who are going to want to get paid. There are guys who are going to want to get some extensions, and that's going to eat up into that $16 million very quickly. So what would you do if you're Kelly McCrimmon, if you're George McPhee, if you're Bill Foley, if you're an executive and you're in that room and you're having to make these deals next year? What would you do as a diehard Vegas Golden Knights fan? What would be your perspective?
I would give the people that they are offering contracts on a one-time offer. If they don't like it, then let them walk. I mean, greed, if they want to be greedy, then, let them walk somewhere else, because they either want to be here or they don't to play. The $16 million, you can always pull players from Henderson and pay them $1 million or $1.5 million. They'd be happy as clams to be able to join the Golden Knights and play for $1.5 million, because with the Henderson's Knights, they were playing for less than $1 million. Most of them. So they'd be happy just to come here and play. And you can put they are with Derek England and the old coach that had cancer. They have been preparing those players to be able to walk across to Las Vegas and join the Golden Knights. So I would give them a one-time offer on a contract, say, this is the best we can do. It's either that you stay here, or, you can walk somewhere else and maybe get something from somewhere else. what you want from somebody else. But, like you said, when you have the cap, you have to deal with the cap. You can't go over that cap. So you have to work with players. And if the players don't want to be with the Knights, they don't have any loyalty to the Knights, then they can walk. So
I've always looked at loyalty as a two-way street in hockey. Yes, you can be loyal to a team, but keep in mind that team can trade you at any minute.
Right.
You can have loyalty to a team, but they can release you or buy you out.
Right. Well, I don't like the way loyalty has kind of went to the wayside for anything. You can get a job, work for somebody for 10 years. If they don't have loyalty with you, then why should you have loyalty with them? So, it's a two-way street. If you want loyalty, you have to be loyal all back. So.
And as we have about a couple minutes left here on Vegas Hockey Hub, discussing the Vegas Golden Knights with Vegas Karen, a diehard Vegas Golden Knights fan. And I know some people don't like to talk about weaknesses. All right, there's some people who don't want to talk about, all right, what does this team have? What does this team don't have? So instead, let's talk about the positives of your Vegas Golden Knights. So what is one positive that you see as a fan that can definitely benefit Vegas long-term? What is one positive heading into the upcoming year that Vegas has going forward?
Probably the biggest thing is they play as a team. No one person has an ego that's big enough that wants to be the number one player. They all want to play together as a team, win as a team, and succeed as a team. And they showed that when they went to the Stanley Cup last year and won. So everybody had a role in that. Everybody played as a team together. And no one person felt like they were better than any of the other players. And I like that as a team progressing as a team together. So.
And I will say that the coach, Bruce Cassidy, I'm a very big fan of. When they brought him over from the Boston Bruins, I was so happy to see it. He's actually been, in my opinion, the best coach the Vegas Golden Knights have had in their franchise history.
Yeah, he's been the biggest asset to the Knights. So.
And with Bruce Cassidy, he obviously is getting paid very handsomely to be the head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights because good coaches do not come cheap. But right. What have you noticed that has made Bruce Cassidy such a great coach? Because I've always said that with Bruce Cassidy, he has a certain style as a coach that has made Vegas into a championship winner.
He works with the team as a team. And you can go over to City National and you can watch him. And when somebody starts goofing off there, he'll put him in check. He doesn't take that. Even at City National, he will clamp down on them and make sure that they are taking the game serious. And when you get on the ice, he expects each player to take the game serious and not screw around and just be there to give them a guidance and advice. So.
And we have about 1 minute left before the show goes off the air. So since you have the name Vegas in your name, Vegas Karen, you have the Oakland A's who are going to be coming here. An NBA expansion team is on its way. And the Las Vegas Raiders have almost doubled in net worth since going from Oakland to Las Vegas. And you do have a really good Formula One race that's going to be coming here later this year. I mean, can you talk about how amazing our city has become, how incredible our city, our town, the sports entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada, has really become?
It's been great. We went from a no sports team town to a #1 sports town, and everybody wants to be here now. So
it has definitely been fantastic, and the Vegas Golden Knights have been a big part of that, especially being the Vegas-born, Vegas-strong mentality. So this has been another edition of Vegas Hockey Hub. I'm your host, Ian Rakelli. I appreciate Vegas Karen for coming on the show and being interviewed. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for inviting me.
And until next time, continue watching hockey, go support junior hockey, and go Knights, go.